The Chinese software giant Tencent decided last week that they will most likely scrap their VR headset development, but a new rumor pointed to Tencent's collaboration with Meta to bring Quest VR headsets to the mainland Chinese market. Hey, welcome to the channel where we talk everything about VR, and in today's video, we'll be covering Meta possibly entering the Chinese market while the Chinese companies are reducing or even completely backing out of the VR hardware space. The first thing we heard was last week when we got a report that Pico is laying off hundreds of employees. Pico is the VR hardware and software company behind their most recent Pico 4 VR headset, and this layoff report came only 4 months after the Pico 4 release. Originally, Pico 4 was highly anticipated as Pico 4 was the first true Meta Quest 2 competitor based on the capabilities and the price of the headset. The only downside is that the headset was available to certain countries that don't include the United States, and even though if consumers really wanted the headset, there is a way around it, but making it available without any workarounds would have surely made the headset more attractive from a consumer's point of view. It all looked really well for Pico as 1 month after the release of Pico 4, Pico 4 was by far the fastest growing headset on Steam VR, even though it wasn't released in North America. Damn! When you get off to a great start like that, I just kinda assumed that their growth would steady out over time, but keep growing at a good pace, you know? So Pico 4, the fastest growing VR headset on Steam, surely the management team is happy, right? Actually, the quite opposite. We also got a report late last year that sales of Pico 4 were not meeting the company's expectations. I don't have the exact numbers for Pico 4 sales and what the company expected, but I know that Pico 4 was losing money on the bottom line with every sale. Coming into 2023, this all led to the report I mentioned in the beginning, where Pico is laying off their company, with some teams losing up to 30% of staffing. I'm sure there is some kind of hurdles to get over in order to release their headset in the US, and it does look like it in the future as Pico posted a job opening to market the headset within the United States, so maybe this move could help with the sales. After we heard about Pico's massive layoffs, we got even more news claiming that Tencent, a Chinese software giant, disbanded their 300-person extended reality unit. This rumor claims that the reason for this is due to a sobering economic outlook, which they expanded on, saying that Tencent's internal economic forecast suggested that this project wouldn't be profitable until 2027. It's very unfortunate for those in China that lost their jobs because of the poor planning at Tencent, but come on. You can't expect to come into relatively a new space within gaming or even the industry as a whole and start making money on day one. A lot of the companies behind VR in the hardware as well as the software side all believe in the success of VR as a platform in the future, and I don't think many believe that this is the peak in 2023. So I was a little confused for why Tencent was exiting making their own headset, but after a couple days later, on February 20th, which is when I'm recording this video, Brad Lynch, who is known for leaking VR related things, posted on his Twitter that Tencent is now rumored to be looking to collaborate with Meta and bring Meta Quest devices to mainland China. I'm sure most of the people watching realize this immediately, but the growth potential Meta has working with Tencent to open the Great Firewall of China is insane. Just as a background, to sell many kinds of products in China, foreign companies have to partner with a Chinese company or set up a local branch. I'm sure there is someone watching that are much more knowledgeable on this topic of business relations with China, but from what I'm reading, right now, if you wanted to get a Quest 2 in China, you could buy a pre-activated Quest 2 with loaded games or have to use a VPN, which I read that it causes a lot of troubles in the first place. So having a company like Tencent that's very known in China is actually very helpful as well. This actually isn't the first time Tencent did something like this. Back in 2019, Tencent teamed up with Nintendo to bring the Nintendo Switch to China, and they officially sold over 1 million units within 1 year of its official release.
Hey, that's pretty good.
From this leak, the person in charge of Meta partnership is also the same person that handled the Nintendo partnership. And this is especially exciting for VR because of how much untapped potential there is for VR in China. It's so crazy to me that even the Chinese government is behind the VR movement, and they have submitted what they called a 2026 action plan, which includes breakthroughs in 3D technologies, VR integrations, immersive audio-visual technology, enriching the new generation of human-friendly VR terminal products, and applying VR on a large scale within the economic and social industries. I could probably make a whole other video talking about each of these bullets, which just shows that VR has a pretty massive backing within China. On top of everything, Tencent, as many people know, is a software company, and they're not just helping Meta sell Quest headsets in China. Even though Tencent gave up on its internal VR hardware production, they still want to take advantage of this massive VR movement in China, so there are even rumors of Tencent launching its own VR content on Quest. Just to give it some perspective, who Meta is working with here, and why having Tencent as a partner excites me so much. When it comes to VR, the hardware is obviously evolving every year with new and better headsets planned for release like the Quest 3, PSVR 2, Apple's Reality Pro, but the thing that most people complain about is the lack of great software or those AAA games that you see on console or PC games. Let's look at Riot Games for example, and looking at their game library, they have Valorant, which had 5.5 million players as of yesterday, which was February 19th on a daily basis, and League of Legends, which has over 148 million monthly active players. It's crazy. You're probably wondering why I'm bringing up Riot Games, but guess who owns Riot Games? Yes, Tencent. I'm not saying that these games will come to VR, but what I'm trying to point out is the scale of the company Meta is working with, who is also in the gaming space, which VR really needs to compete with flat screen games. But just by having the support to possibly make the Quest headsets a success is definitely a big deal by itself. As this rumor is still in its early stages, we don't know when this is going to happen. With Quest 3 expected to release this year, I could see them matching the rollout date with the release date for Quest 3 so that they can introduce one consumer level headset, Quest 3, and one prosumer level headset, Quest Pro, to offer to the Chinese market. The other uncertainty with Meta tapping into China is whether they'll be as successful as they are with the rest of the world. So at this point, I think everyone knows that the Quest 2 is the most popular headset in the market by far, and even with Tencent's backup, it doesn't guarantee Meta's success in China because as China puts in a lot of effort into VR, I could see them prioritizing headsets made by a Chinese company over Meta. But with all of that being said, you know Meta doesn't even have to be the industry leader in China just because it's not a winner-take-all market. Regardless of whatever happens, Meta will get a really big revenue boost from selling to China, and I really do hope that the revenue will affect the consumers in a positive way through better technology, better support, or even lowering the cost of the headset or software. I would love to hear what you think on this topic, so let me know in the comments below. As I mentioned new headsets like the Quest 3 earlier, the video you see on the screen is all about Meta's most up-to-date plan for Quest 3.